Ablaze and good day to you, sir. I am Bert Kendog Barazon. Today, I'm going to discuss to you the different parts of a pistol and revolver, as well as its function. Now, these are the parts of revolver. The first one is grip. This is the area where the shooter holds the weapon. It is usually the only wooden part of the gun. It will often have a fine checkered pattern to aid in the shooter's grip and may have an implanted manufactured medallion. Grips can be customized to different sizes to accommodate the shooter's hand. Some combat grips are constructed of a non-slip hard rubber material. Second is the front and rear sights. These are located on top of the barrel and allow the shooter to align the weapon with the intended target. The third one is barrel. The barrel is secured along the top of the weapon and is built into a fix to the frame. The inside of the barrel has a spiral pattern of cuts called lambs and grooves. This causes the bullet to spin as it travels through the barrel. This spinning action continues during the bullet's flight, greatly improving its to spin as it travels through the barrel. This spinning action continues during the bullet's flight, greatly improving its accuracy. The fourth one is the muzzle. The muzzle of any firearm is the end of the barrel where the bullet will exit. The term muzzle awareness refers to always knowing in what direction your weapon is pointed. The next one is the trigger guard. This is a piece of metal that encircles the trigger, preventing accidental trigger engagement. Next is trigger. This is located inside the trigger guard toward the bottom of the weapon. When the trigger is pulled to the rear, either one or two things will happen depending on the type of revolver. If it's a double action model, as the trigger is pulled, the hammer will move to the rear and the cylinder will rotate, aligning the next chamber with the barrel. As the shooter continues to squeeze the trigger, the hammer will be released, traveling quickly forward, striking firing pin and causing the weapon to fire. Some models have the firing pin incorporated into the design of the hammer. The next one is revolver. It's a single action. The shooter will have to manually cock the firearm by pulling the hammer back and locking it in place. When the trigger is squeezed, the hammer will be released, traveling quickly forward, causing the weapon to fire. The eighth one is cylinder. The cylinder is one piece of the steel, usually with either 5 or 6 chambers. Each chambers hold one round of ammunition. The cylinder gets its name from its cylindrical shape. As the hammer is drawn back, the cylinder rotates, aligning the next chamber and round with the barrel. The cylinders are loaded differently depending on the type of revolver. Most modern revolvers have a release that allows the cylinder to swing out to the side and down. This makes removing spent cartridges and reloading easy. Many shooters use speed loaders to accelerate reloading. Next one is the ejector rod and extractor. The ejector rod runs through the center of the cylinder and acts as its axis, allowing the cylinder to turn. The extractor is attached to the end of the ejector rod and is recessed into the cylinder. When the revolver is loaded, each cartridge rests against the extractor. After the last round is fired, the cylinder release is pressed and the cylinder swings out to the side. The shooter then pushes back on the front of the ejector rod. The rod travels back, catching its the rims of the spent cartridge on the extractor. The extractor forces all the spent cartridge from the cylinder at the same time. The extractor is spring loaded and returns to the forward position to allow for reloading. The next one is the cylinder release. The cylinder release is usually a small spring loaded slide lever that is located behind the cylinder. Depending on the revolver model, it is either pushed forward or down. Pressing the cylinder release allows the cylinder to swing out of the side and down for unloading and loading. This one is the hammer. The hammer is located just behind the cylinder and centered with the barrel. The purpose of the hammer is to strike either a firing pin or the cartridge primer, causing the revolver to fire. If the striking surface of the hammer is flat, the weapon uses a floating firing pin. If the striking surface of the hammer is pointed, the weapon does not have a separate firing pin. The pointed area of the hammer is the firing pin and comes in direct contact with the cartridge primer. Now, let's move on to the pistol parts and function. First is the grip. The grip on the semi-automatic handgun isn't just the handhold for the weapon. The grip is hollow and houses the weapon's ammunition in a magazine. The bottom of the grip is open and is called the magazine port or loading port. It also has a magazine release button within the grip. The second one is the magazine. It's a removable ammunition feeding and storage device. It can be separated from the weapon when empty and replaced with a full magazine. Cartridges are stuck against spring tension, which allows the magazine to feed each round into the weapon's chamber. Magazines allow semi-automatic handguns to fire more rounds than revolvers and are much faster to reload. The third one is button. Button is generally located in front of the grip behind the trigger guard. When a loaded magazine is inserted into the weapon, the shooter will hear an audible click. This is the magazine release mechanism locking the magazine in place. In order to remove or replace the magazine, the shooter must depress the button. Most magazines will drop from the weapon when the button is pushed, making reloading much quicker. The fourth one is the top portion of the weapon. It is the part that slides back and forth when the weapon is fired. The slide must be pulled back and released to load the cartridge into the chamber. When the bullet is fired, three things happen. The recoil forces the slide to the rear. As this happens, the extractor, which is attached to the slide, removes and injects the spent cartridge. The rearward action of the slide also recocks the hammer for the next round. As the slide moves forward, it pushes the next cartridge out of the magazine and loads into the chamber. The fifth one is the safety or decocking lever. Many semi-automatics will have a decocking lever, which is also referred to as a safety. It will usually be located below the rear sight. This is a two-position lever. If a weapon has the hammer back in the cocked position, the shooter may lower the hammer by using the decocking lever. A second feature of the decocking lever is that in the down or the safe position, the weapon will not fire. The shooter must move the lever up to the fire position for the weapon to function. The sixth one is the takedown lever. These levers will be slightly different depending on the manufacturer. They are located above the trigger but just below the slide. The lever serves to release the slide and barrel to field strip the weapon. The next one is the slide stop, also known as the slide release. This is the lever located behind the takedown lever. The slide stops function is to lock the slide in the rear open position after the last round in the magazine is fired. Pushing down on the slide stop releases the slide, allowing it to snap forward. With many semi-automatics, forcefully setting a fresh magazine will cause the slide release to disengage and the slide will cycle forward. The next one is recoil spring and guide. The recoil spring and guide are located inside the weapon, usually just below the barrel. When a semi-automatic is fired, the slide is forced back by the weapon's recoil. The recoil also compresses the recoil spring, which is responsible for returning the slide forward, setting the next chamber. Around many models have a recoil spring and spring guide as one connected unit. The last one is handgun disassembly. Revolvers are seldom disassembled and remain completely intact for cleaning. Semi-automatics will need to be disassembled into 5 pieces to allow for proper cleaning. First, use the magazine release button to remove the magazine. Then use the takedown lever to release the slide and barrel, which are easily separated. The recoil spring and guide can then be removed. That's as far as the weapon needs to be disassembled for cleaning. Pistols also have advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of pistol, the first one is that it is smaller. The second one is lighter. The third one is easier to conceal. The fourth one, faster reloading of magazine that carry more bullets. In short, it has a higher magazine capacity. That is why most police and military organizations use pistols. The fifth one, pistols are more accessible. That is why it's great for self-defense purposes. They're quite affordable too. So anyone can have pistol. Pistols have a few disadvantages. The first one is when comparing a revolver versus pistol, you'll see that the latter has more moving parts. They're much more complicated, which leads to higher risk of mechanical failures. The second one is plus the spring are heavier so weaker users might find it hard to pull the trigger. The third one is modern pistols usually only fire one shot every time you pull the trigger. The fourth one is although they have a bigger capacity than revolvers, they still have a shorter magazine than the rifles. The possibility to run out of ammo is still there. The fifth one is because of the smaller grip surface, you also have less control. You can only use it for short range so it doesn't work well for far away targets. Revolvers also has advantages and disadvantages. First is with revolvers, you don't have to push some buttons or lever and manipulate the gun beyond pulling the trigger. It is efficient. You don't have anything to forget to do before firing. The second is this comes in handy when faced with a new tense situation. Even the experienced gun owners might forget to take the safety off. For instance, the heavy trigger can also be an advantage in this situation as you won't be able to fire because of being jumpy. The third one is revolvers are pretty durable and reliable as well. They are not known for having frequent mechanical failures and they can shoot a much wider range of ammunition. However, its most obvious disadvantage is that it has a slower reload time. After 5 to 7 shots, you have to reload the bullets one by one into the revolver. The next one is make sure to never drop a reloader too. they're much more prone to firing accidentally when dropped. The last one is, in general, they require more skills to fire accurately. It's very important for us criminologists to study about pistols and revolvers as well as its function, because in our future profession, guns is our best friend. The more knowledge we have in handling firearms, the safer our community and accidents will be prevented. And by knowing each part and function of these firearms, we are able to do our future jobs excellently.